Hello fellow rowers, this is Landro off of LandroeGaming, bringing you the guild Who Dares Wins versus Madness of Deathwing 10-player Heroic. So this is the culmination of this patch's content, Heroic version of Madness of Deathwing. Now we kind of came here perhaps a little bit arrogant. We thought we would believe the rumours were once you get spine down then Madness is a cakewalk. It isn't the case. It's actually quite a tricky fight, very healing intensive, especially in the makeup that we ran, which was 1 tank, 2 healers, 7 DPS. But it was an enjoyable fight. Now, as an Atonement disc, there's things to remember on each arm/wing. Smiting and Holy Firing to build your evangelism, to consume your Archangel is very beneficial. You want to Prayer of Mending, Prayer of Healing as much as possible. You want to use your Power Infusions and things like that. The first couple of platforms are relatively straightforward. We got through these first few platforms consistently without really knowing, without really experiencing the fight, so not really too much to report on these two platforms. The healing isn't hugely intensive. I mean, comparatively it felt quite similar to what normal felt before the nerfs. There's a few extra mechanics such as the Parasite which give increased damage, and the impales obviously hit vastly harder. A big cooldown is needed every impale. We had DPS in this setup such that the first couple of platforms we didn't get the second impale, and that is important. If you do get a second impale, you need to have a contingency plan set up. We had a Shadow Priest who would move into melee range, everybody else would move out, and they'd take the second impale with the dispersion. There are various other mechanics that you can use, but that's how we done it. And once you get the first platform down, it's you've all got Dream. There shouldn't really be any excuses for deaths. But you land on your second platform, which is the red platform. Channel your mana returning spells. You've got Smite and Holy Fire Corruption. Spot heal anybody that takes crush damage. Whoever gets Parasite, you want to shield. Prior to every impale, you need to make sure your tank is at 100%, and that's very important. There is a platform where you have to use your cooldown, your pain suppression in this case. But you do need to make sure your tank is 100%, ideally pre-shielded and with some sort of Aegis or Prayer of Mending on them. But if they are, the major cooldown should be enough for them to survive. It needs to be, sort of 40% damage reduction type cooldowns at this point. Anybody with Parasite, you need to then switch to them, of course. Pre-shield, Penance, Greater Heals, keep them topped up as well as the tank. And in amongst that, lots of Smiting and Holy Firing on the Corruption. Melee will take a lot of crush damage, so your Atonement heals there will be very, very beneficial. And there's not really too much to report there. Again, you switch to the Bolt as you would in normal. You take the Bolt down ASAP. As Atonement, you could help with a little bit of DPS here and there. You'll probably end up doing around about 7 or 8k heals per second. DPS on this fight with your Atonement. So that's very obviously beneficial as the fight wears on. But you need to work your Smites and your Holy Fires in amongst your shielding and your ensuring that your healing is done. Your healing is your priority. Obviously, that's why you're there. So nobody die. That's your priority. As you can see, Wookiee took a lot of damage there. Now that was down to a slight problem we had with the timing of the Blistering Tentacles. They spawned at the same time as the Parasite. Now what that can mean is the Parasite damage, which is kind of like a pulsing AoE damage. But it always hits the person who's got the Parasite. They move away from the rest of the raid in time before it explodes and virtually one-shots everybody. If you get that at the same time as Blistering Tentacles, the stacks of Blistering Tentacles can lead to increased damage. Basically what you want to be doing on this fight from a DPS tank and healing perspective is minimizing the damage that you take. You can't take any needless damage, because if you do, inevitably the healers might fall behind and it will cause a death. So you need to be aware of everything, and it takes a heck of a lot of raid-wide coordination between everybody. Lots of talk. You need to be very, very vocal. This fight, as opposed to Spine, I found that there's a lot more random type things that can happen here that you need to be prepared for. For example, the Parasite being random and all that sort of thing. Spine was a very, very, very well thought out fight. Kudos to Blizzard for it. I enjoyed it infinitely. But it is a very metronomic fight. It has its pattern, whereas Deathwing has a lot more sort of randomness to it. So I personally prefer this fight. I really, really enjoyed it, both on normal and on heroic. Now this is the third platform that we're on at the moment, and what I will need to do here is pain suppression the tank. So I like to get into my position very early. I tend to always hang out at the left-hand side of the platform. You need to spread as much as possible to ensure that as few people as possible take crush damage. Inevitably, melee will take a hit here and there. especially when they're stacking to take out the Parasite. You know, if in a perfect world you would mitigate as much of the damage as you can, but you don't need to worry if they do take the odd hit. It's not the end of the world. They're trying their best to avoid the damage. They need to spread out in an arc around the corruption as they take it down, and as the range you find a spot in amongst the melee, you know, a bit further back where you can avoid the crushes as much as possible. Now this platform, obviously the blistering tentacles will spawn and will need to be single targeted down, so it's important that your DPS switch ASAP. We had very good DPS and they switched promptly. As a healer you will be wanting to use your cooldowns at a time when the blistering spawn. As you can see, our DPS didn't DPS the wing or the arm at this point, purely because you don't want blistering spawning at the same time as the Parasite goes off. As we saw on the other platform, you can mitigate it there because the blisterings don't stay up for very long, but if they spawned at the same time on this platform, it can be catastrophic. So yeah, as you disc, you want to make sure that you don't fall behind on your healing. That's the priority here. Obviously the healing throughput of a disc priest is pretty pants, if we're being honest. What differentiates them from the healers such as the Holy Paladins and the Resto Druids and the Resto Shamans and the Holy Priests who have that outright raw healing throughput is your Aegis, your prayer of healings to ensure that you don't fall behind on the healing. You need to be keeping on top. So it's where you work in conjunction well with a class with very good healing throughput, as Resto Shaman, Disc Priest in this instance, and you then, you know, can ensure that you don't fall behind, and it gives your Resto Shaman a chance to top everybody up. So that's where your benefit is into the raid. And like I said on the previous platforms, what you want to be doing is you want to be using your consuming your evangelism, your archangel, get that going off at times when the damage is increased, because the 15% extra does of course help. And you've got your power infusion, which is a huge cooldown. This is the only fight pretty much where I had no choice but to use it on myself, not just for the increased healing throughput that it gave from its 20% haste, but of course the mana retention later on in the fight. We couldn't really afford to give it to a DPS. Now this platform is the hardest, and once you master this platform, you're going into phase 2 basically. You've got the same mechanics, the corruptions and the crushes and all that sort of thing. They're all hitting a little bit harder. You've got less of the aspect buffs now, so everything's a little bit more intense. And this is where the heroic part of, or the heroic name of the fight sort of comes into its own. This is why it's heroic, these kind of moments. As you can see, the crush takes massive amounts of HP, and especially when people are stacked to take out the Parasite. Now it's the next mechanic that's a difficult thing. The bolt has no slow. Now that obviously means there's going to be a big whack of damage incoming, but also because you haven't got the buffs that I mentioned earlier, you will get a second impale. It's almost inevitable. So your Shadow Priest needs to be very aware. You need everybody to stack under your bubble, away from the boss. I wait for Draxi, our Shadow Priest, to get the impale. The second that impale hits, I leap of faith back in, and then I will use my Divine Hymn. I've saved Divine Hymn specifically for this part of the fight because this is the most likely time to get a death with the bolt damage going out. You've got your impale mechanic to work around. In addition to that, you get your bloods that spawn, and you also have, of course, crush damage, and it's the crushes that are the ones that can cause the trouble. Because they're so random, you don't know when they're going to hit and who they're going to hit. You need to make sure people are topped up and as high as possible to avoid an untimely death. And again, as a disc, as Atonement, this is where your benefit comes to the raid, because in effect what your powered shield does is increases your target's HP by 35 or 70k if it procs the tier 4 bonus, and it can save lives. And that's why disc are so important throughout this entire content, really, and it culminates in this fight. Now the blistering tentacles hit very hard at this point, so the first set you want to consume your evangelisms, proc your archangel, and get lots of healing out there. At all times you want to be ensuring your rapture is proccing. It's hugely important. I'll show you the logs at the end of this fight just to show you how much mana you get back if you keep your rapture proccing, and you'll see that I enter phase 2, which is incredibly healing intensive, at basically full mana. So, and that is almost all down to the rapture procs. Now the second set of blisterings are the danger zone of this platform. I save my power infusion for this point, and I will also have my archangel at this point. You can call for additional help from a druid if you've got druid that can do tranquility. We had a Shadow Priest as well that could do a Divine Hymn if needed, but we only needed the tranquility at this point, and we managed to pull things back around. Very healing intensive part of the fight. But if you can go into phase 2 without using your rebirth and lots of mana, things are looking good. And you want to smite and holy fire the elemental fragments here. You want to pre-shield anybody targeted by shrapnel if you can. You want to smite and holy fire your elementium terrors. Do not let your tank die. You've got to keep them up ASAP, and then basically you've just got to heal your ass off with lots of AoE healing. Now the smite and the holy fire at this point is hugely beneficial because of the damage that's constantly going around. Your atonement heals will be proccing quite a lot here. And when the elementium terrors spawn, the first set you will be wanting your tank, who will have his cooldowns back up, so you'll be using them to mitigate the huge spikes of damage that will be incoming. But basically what you want to be doing here is anticipating damage, because even if your tank is at 100%, you want to be getting heals going into him, because you will know inevitably there's going to be a lot of ticks of the tetanus going through on him. So even if he's looking like he's in good shape, get that heal casting. Your great heal is going to be casting at almost 2 seconds. You want it to be hitting just as that damage goes off, and do that sort of thing. Now when the first set of ads spawn, this is the mechanic that is basically game changing at this point of the fight. You need to make sure that none of those, or as few of those as possible, hit Deathwing. Each one that hits Deathwing will give him HP back, and you will end up inevitably hitting Berserk if you don't stop them all hitting Deathwing. We got to this point of the fight and we failed quite badly on the Bloods. Ended up with Deathwing pretty much back to full health. That was a bit of an exaggeration, but we hit Berserker basically. But what that did do, funnily enough, is it gave us a chance to master this phase of the fight, because we kept getting into it, and we got to know how we mitigate the Bloods and how we slow them and how we do all our AoEs on them. And you've basically got to time this part of the fight to get Deathwing down to his next 5% HP. The Bloods will spawn at 20, 15, 10 and 5%. So you want to force them to spawn when you want. So you want to take down the ads, take down the Elementium Terrors, and then you want to spawn another set of Bloods, and you want to DPS Deathwing back down another 5%, rinse and repeat. And all the time, the incremental damage is going up and up. All the damage is going up at an incremental rate. As a healer, you're starting to feel the pressure here. I had my pain suppression back up here, and it's important that you've got a cooldown for the tank for the second set of Elementium Terrors, and from a healing perspective, you've got to be very proud if your tank doesn't die throughout the duration of this encounter. You've done things right and they've worked their cooldowns right, and as a unit, because your healers and your tanks are a unit within WoW, if you can stop them dying, job done, and then you let your DPS go to town and kick Deathwing's arse. At this point in the fight, when your fourth set of Bloods are spawning, you want them to drop. None of them allowed to hit Deathwing. A couple got through here, but our DPS done fantastic to pick up this part of the fight and get it down. And you want to be using your Dream. It's very important. You basically use Dream on cooldown at this point. Once you're through the point where Dream is going to keep you alive when you get targeted by shrapnel, you're now at the point when Dream is just going to mitigate that damage and enable your healers to top you all back up. And eventually you get Deathwing down, and you should feel very happy that as a guild you've got your 8 of 8 heroic achievement. I'm hugely proud of everybody within Who Dares Wins. They stuck together through the good times and through the bad times, stuck together when Diablo came out and it obliterates your raid team, and you can all as one, as a unit, feel the thrill of getting a content cleared as a guild. And I'd like to thank all the guild for their wonderful effort. The consistency of being available for all the raids. We'd raid twice a week for 3 hours, and more often than not we had almost all our people, all our core raid team logging every time. And it culminates in this moment when you get Deathwing down, and you can say, you're 8 of 8, you're saviours, and you're proud to say you're in your guild that done that. Now, as you can see on my screen, I'm just showing you the mana returns and how much Rapture returns throughout the duration of that fight. It was 500,000 mana back through Rapture. Now, obviously, if you're not working your Rapture well enough, inevitably you're going to end up going into phase 2 with 30 or 40% mana, and you're going to get to the part of the fight where it's very healing intensive, where you will need to inevitably use your flash heals and your very expensive heals, because you've got no other option. People die otherwise, and you'll be spreading shields about over everybody to enable your shaman to get people back up, or your holy paladin, or whatever raid combination of healers you set up. And I prayed to the gods that I got them out, and they looked down upon me kindly, and they gave me Lifebinder's Handmaiden, which is a very pretty mount. And now basically what we do is, as a guild, we do this 9 more times, and we ensure everybody gets their mount, We get some lovely loot. I was very unlucky with loot rolls throughout the duration of Deathwing. It wasn't until the last 2 bosses, Spine and Madness, that I feel like I got a bit lucky. I got the healing trinket off of Spine and the mount off of Madness, so I came away very happy in the end. But yeah, that's basically Madness of Deathwing. So thank you very, very much to everybody. Thank you to all the views. Landro out.
Finish it.
We have it. We have it. Hell yeah.
It actually goes to 0%. Go on! Yeah!
Trying off.
Yeah!
Who was right about hero bitches?
No one loot this fucking corpse. Oh.
It's always the last pull, isn't it? And I have to say, I love Abin's fucking nerd scream.
Is that Abin screaming?
Don't forget to put on your new
Please,
titles.
someone say they fraps that, because I want that in the video, Abin screaming.
I
Oh, that was fucking funny.
Fuck running away from Impale. I'm retiring from this fucking fight for a week.
What drop? What drop?
What? So, firstly, all you caster buddies out there,
Oh, can I roll on that main spec?
yes, because it is.
Will I be rolling for DPS or healing?
You can roll. You can roll. You go DPS more fights than you fucking hell.
Oh my god.
Roll.
A reroll.
Reroll.
Oh.
Watch this, I'm gonna roll something ridiculous now. Wait till you see it, like a 99 or something.
On that roll.
It'll be a good one for the mount. It's actually the Heroic Ledger is best in slot with that.
Next on the list, Soul Drinker.
Kev, I actually hope you have. Kev, I hope you have the 2 rolls in that.
Out 87.
By any chance, is there a normal mount in there as well?
There could be.
Yeah, I know.
The mount is there.
Both mounts can drop. No, the 2 mounts can drop. The 2 different ones.
Right, roll for the mount. It's just free roll. Let's just say free roll it up.
Ah, Kev! Damn you, Kev!
Congrats, Kev, mate.
Congrats.
That's the first roll that I wanted to win that I lost in quite a while.
It's an ugly
Look,
man.
he's had like fuck all loot the entire like this patch. He never wins anything. He deserves that more than anyone.
Hey, I never win. I only get items from people.
And then I DC'd. We did it pretty much again. We kept wiping and wiping and wiping, and then like the last pull.
Yeah, it's the way we always do it.
It's just fucking typical. To be honest, what we should do, we should raid like we should have done that for 1 hour, and I bet you, on the last pull we said we do in that hour, we'd have done it. It's bullshit.
Oh, fuck me. Good job, guys. Really good job. We will be fucking... I think we're going to be on the 12th on the list now.
Nice. You did a good
Best
job. It only
tier.
took us one night to do madness.
And let's just say this is our first, let's just say, successful, officially successful
Tier.
tier. We have never got this far in a tier ever. And it's been really fun raiding with you guys. It really has.
Ah, he's
Oh,
going
it's
on
not the
7.
end. Oh, so emotional.
Oh!
And once we get 10 mounts for 10 people, we will fucking clean mop up. We will keep this up. I want to take a title for the page, a photo for the page.